The call to adventure. In the dimly lit cockpit of his ship, the Starfire, Jackson Voss stared at the flickering screen displaying the distress signal. It was an ordinary day in the life of a bounty hunter, but this call was different. The message came from Theros Prime, a desolate planet known for its harsh landscapes and abandoned mining facilities. It promised an astronomical sum for rescuing a kidnapped alien scientist, a staggering 5 million credits. Jackson leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his tousled brown hair. A scientist? What's so special about her? He muttered to himself. His ship's AI, Nova, chimed in with her usual blend of sarcasm and efficiency. The colony claims she possesses knowledge that could revolutionize their energy systems. Sounds like quite the catch. Or a trap, Jackson replied, narrowing his eyes at the screen. He had seen too many jobs go sideways to trust easily. But 5 million credits could buy him a new ship, or at least pay off his debts. With a resigned sigh, he activated the ship's engines. Set course for Theros Prime. As they broke through the atmosphere, Jackson's heart raced with anticipation mixed with caution. The planet's surface was rugged and scarred from years of mining operations. He landed near an old facility that had long been abandoned by its original owners. The air was thick with dust and silence as he stepped out of the ship. Nova, run a scan, he ordered as he adjusted his plasma rifle slung over his shoulder. Scanning. Life signs detected inside the facility, approximately 10 individuals, Nova reported. 10? That's more than I expected, Jackson said, frowning. What else do we know? The kidnappers appear to be armed with advanced weaponry, likely mercenaries, Nova replied. Jackson nodded slowly. This was starting to feel like more than just a simple rescue mission. He activated his stealth mode, blending into the shadows as he approached the entrance of the facility. The door creaked open as he slipped inside, his senses heightened. Inside, the air was stale and filled with echoes of machinery long since powered down. As he moved deeper into the complex, he could hear voices coming from what appeared to be a central chamber. Keep her restrained. We can't afford any mistakes, one voice barked. Jackson crouched low behind a stack of crates as he peered into the chamber. There she was, Lyra, the alien scientist they had taken hostage. Her vibrant green skin glowed faintly under the dim lights. She was bound to an ancient-looking device pulsating with energy. Nova, he whispered urgently, what can you tell me about that device? It appears to be some form of ancient technology. Its purpose is currently unknown, Nova replied. Jackson's mind raced as he formulated a plan. He needed to create a distraction to draw attention away from Lyra while he worked on freeing her. He reached into his utility belt and pulled out a small EMP grenade, a tool he often relied on during tight situations. On my mark, he whispered to himself as he prepared to throw it into the chamber. With one swift motion, he tossed the grenade into the room where it landed with a soft thud before detonating in a flash of light and sound. Alarms blared as chaos erupted within the chamber, mercenaries scrambled in every direction. Get her! Don't let him escape, shouted one of them as they rushed toward him. Taking advantage of their confusion, Jackson sprinted into action. He dashed across the room towards Lyra, dodging incoming fire from panicked guards who were trying to regain control of the situation. His training kicked in as he ducked behind cover while returning fire with precision shots from his plasma rifle. Hang on. I'm coming, he shouted over the din as he reached Lyra's side. She looked up at him with wide eyes filled with fear and determination. You're here to rescue me? She asked incredulously. Yeah, but we need to move fast. Jackson replied as he began working on releasing her from her restraints. Before they could escape, however, one of the mercenaries regained composure and aimed directly at them. Just then, Nova intervened through Jackson's earpiece. Jackson. Incoming fire. Without thinking twice, Jackson pushed Lyra out of harm's way just as plasma bolts whizzed past them. We need to get out now. He finally managed to free her from her bindings just as another guard charged at them. Lyra quickly sprang into action herself. She raised her hands toward their attacker and emitted a pulse of energy that sent him crashing against the wall like a rag doll. Impressive, Jackson said with an approving nod as they made their way toward an exit amidst all the chaos. They burst through another door just as more guards flooded into their path. However, this time Lyra led them through twisting corridors she seemed to know instinctively. "Where are we going?" Jackson asked breathlessly as they navigated through darkened hallways filled with debris. "To my research lab," she replied urgently while glancing back at him over her shoulder. "There's something I need you to see." As they reached her lab, a room cluttered with strange devices and glowing screens, Lyra quickly accessed one of her consoles while keeping an eye on their surroundings. "What are you doing?" Jackson asked while keeping watch at the door for any signs of pursuit. "I need to activate my emergency beacon," she explained, hurriedly tapping commands on her console before turning back towards him. "If we can send out this signal, help will arrive." Just then, alarms blared again throughout the facility indicating that their escape had been discovered. Mercenaries were closing in fast. "I don't think we have time for that," Jackson urged anxiously as he readied his rifle once more. Lyra hesitated for only a moment before making up her mind. She pressed one final button on her console which sent out an urgent distress signal across all channels before turning back towards him with determination in her eyes. "Let's move." Together they bolted down another corridor just as gunfire erupted behind them. They could hear shouts echoing through the halls as they raced towards freedom, towards whatever lay ahead in this unexpected adventure that had only just begun. Into the shadows. The dense foliage of Proxima B7 closed in around Ray and Aurora as they navigated through the alien landscape, the air thick with tension. The distant whir of engines faded into the background, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the occasional chirp of unseen creatures. Ray could feel the weight of Aurora's presence beside him, her golden eyes scanning their surroundings with a mix of caution and determination. "Stay close," he whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. "We need to reach my ship before they find us." Aurora nodded, her expression serious as she adjusted her lilac gown, which had adapted to their environment, becoming more practical for their escape. "Your vessel is hidden well?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "Yeah, it's cloaked and shielded," Ray replied, glancing back at her. "But we have to move quickly. If House Morn's hunters are as good as you say, they won't take long to track us down." As they pressed forward, Ray's mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. He had stumbled upon a sleeping princess, a woman from a civilization lost to time, and now they were both fugitives. The stakes had never been higher. He couldn't shake the feeling that their fates were intertwined in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. "Tell me more about House Morn," Ray said, trying to keep his mind focused on the task at hand. "What do they want with you?" Aurora's expression darkened as she walked beside him. "They want power," she said simply. "My family was a threat to their control over Proxima B. By eliminating us, they believed they could maintain their dominance without opposition." Ray felt a surge of anger at the injustice of it all. "So they killed your family and left you to sleep for a century?" he asked incredulously. "It was more than that," Aurora replied, her voice heavy with emotion. "They wanted to erase our legacy entirely. My father hoped I would awaken to a new world where our people could rise again, where we could reclaim our place among the stars. Then let's make sure that happens," Ray said firmly, determination coursing through him. "We'll find a way to protect you." As they continued through the underbrush, Ray suddenly halted, raising a hand for silence. The sound of engines grew louder again, echoing through the trees like an ominous warning. He crouched low behind a thick trunk, motioning for Aurora to do the same. "They're getting closer," he whispered, peering through the foliage. In the distance, he spotted two sleek ships gliding silently between the trees. House Morn's hunters were on the prowl. Aurora leaned closer to him, her breath warm against his ear as she whispered, "We need to distract them again." Ray nodded but hesitated for a moment, his heart racing as he felt her presence so close. "I have another distraction unit," he said quietly. "But it won't hold them for long." "Then we must make it count," she replied resolutely. With a quick motion, Ray pulled out the small device and activated it before tossing it deeper into the jungle. The device emitted a series of bright flashes and loud noises that echoed through the trees like an explosion. "Now!" Ray urged as they darted in the opposite direction, hearts pounding in unison. They raced through the underbrush as the sounds of confusion erupted behind them. The hunters had taken the bait and were pursuing the false lead. Ray felt adrenaline surge through his veins as they pushed harder toward his ship. "Just a little further," he shouted over his shoulder. As they broke through a final thicket of trees, Ray spotted his ship nestled among some boulders, a modified Stellar-class scout ship that had served him well in countless missions. "There it is," he exclaimed with relief. They sprinted toward it just as another alarm blared in the distance. House Morn was regrouping and would be back on their trail soon. Ray quickly punched in commands on his wrist computer to activate the ship's systems while Aurora kept watch around them. The hatch opened with a hiss, and they both jumped inside. "Get strapped in," Ray called out as he slid into the pilot's seat and began powering up the engines. Aurora obeyed without hesitation, securing herself in one of the passenger seats while keeping her gaze fixed on him. "Can you get us off this planet?" she asked urgently. "I can try," he replied as he concentrated on navigating through the ship's interface. The familiar hum of machinery filled his ears as systems came online one by one. Suddenly, warning lights flashed across his console. The hunters had found their trail again and were closing in fast. "Ray!" Aurora shouted, panic creeping into her voice. "They're coming." "I know," he snapped back as he worked furiously to initiate launch sequences. "Just hold on." The engines roared to life beneath them as Ray engaged the cloaking system and prepared for takeoff. He could see shadows moving outside. House Morn's ships were circling like vultures. With one final push of buttons and levers, he slammed down on the launch throttle just as laser fire erupted outside. The ship lurched upward violently but held steady as they broke free from Proxima B7's atmosphere. "Hang on!" Ray shouted again as they shot into space, leaving behind the purple-hued world that had nearly claimed them both. As they entered orbit, Ray quickly activated their stealth systems once more and glanced at Aurora beside him, her eyes wide with awe but also fear. "We made it," she breathed out slowly, relief washing over her features. "For now," Ray replied grimly as he scanned their surroundings for any signs of pursuit. The darkness of space enveloped them like a comforting blanket but also reminded him of how vulnerable they truly were. "What now?" Aurora asked softly after a moment of silence between them. Ray took a deep breath and steered their ship away from Proxima B7 towards an uncharted sector where they could regroup and plan their next move. "We need to lay low for a while," he said thoughtfully. "I'll contact Earth Command once we're safe." Aurora shook her head slightly. "You can't do that yet," she insisted firmly. "Not until we find out if House Morn has any spies watching Earth." Ray frowned at her words but understood her reasoning. Their enemies would be relentless in pursuing her until every trace of House Ven was eradicated. "We'll figure it out together," he promised her sincerely as he set course for an isolated asteroid belt where they could hide while plotting their next steps. As they drifted into silence once more, each lost in their thoughts, Ray couldn't shake off how much had changed since waking Aurora from her slumber, now entwined in each other's fates amidst danger and uncertainty. Unexpected allies. The ship's engines hummed softly as Ray and Aurora navigated through the vastness of space, the stars twinkling like distant beacons of hope. The asteroid belt lay ahead, a chaotic yet beautiful field of rock and debris that offered them a temporary sanctuary from House Morn's relentless pursuit. Ray's heart raced not just from the adrenaline of their escape but also from the growing connection he felt with Aurora. Are you all right? Ray asked, glancing over at her as she stared out the viewport, her golden eyes reflecting the starlight. I am adjusting, Aurora replied, her voice steadied despite the turmoil they had just escaped. But I fear this is only the beginning. Ray nodded, understanding the weight of her words. They had narrowly avoided capture, but House Morn would not relent easily. We need a plan, he said, turning back to the controls. I can't keep running forever. Aurora turned to face him, her expression serious. We must find allies, she suggested. There are still those loyal to my family, remnants of House Ven who may help us. Where do we start? Ray asked, intrigued by the idea. There is a hidden enclave on the planet Draxus 4, she explained. It was a safe haven for my people during the initial purge. If any remain, they will be there. Draxus 4 it is then, Ray said decisively as he plotted a course for the distant planet. The ship surged forward, and they entered hyperspace, leaving behind the asteroid belt and their recent troubles. After what felt like an eternity in hyperspace, they finally emerged near Draxus 4. The planet was lush and vibrant, its surface dotted with sprawling forests and shimmering lakes. As they descended through the atmosphere, Ray couldn't help but admire its beauty. Looks like paradise, he remarked as he piloted the ship toward a secluded clearing. It is a remnant of what Proxima B once was, Aurora replied wistfully. Before House Morn's tyranny. Ray landed the ship with practiced ease and powered down the engines. The moment they stepped outside, they were enveloped by the rich sense of alien flora and fauna. Aurora took a deep breath, her expression one of nostalgia mixed with sadness. Let's find your allies, Ray said, breaking her reverie. They ventured into the forest, guided by Aurora's instincts and memories of her past. The trees were tall and majestic, their leaves shimmering in hues of blue and green under the sunlight filtering through the canopy. As they walked deeper into the woods, Aurora began to recount stories of her childhood, of playing among these very trees and learning about her family's legacy. Ray listened intently, captivated not just by her words but by her passion for her people. Suddenly, they heard voices ahead, a mix of laughter and chatter that brought both hope and apprehension to their hearts. Stay close, Ray whispered as they approached a clearing where several figures were gathered around a fire. As they stepped into view, the laughter ceased abruptly, replaced by wary gazes directed at them. A tall figure stepped forward, an older man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through them. Aurora, he called out incredulously. Is it truly you? Yes, it is me, Eldrin, she exclaimed as she rushed forward to embrace him. Ray watched as their reunion unfolded. It was clear that Eldrin was someone important to Aurora, a mentor or perhaps even a father figure. By the stars. We thought you were lost forever. Eldrin said as he pulled back to look at her. His gaze shifted to Ray with suspicion. And who is this human? This is Ray Thompson, Aurora introduced him with pride in her voice. He saved my life. Eldrin studied Ray intently before nodding slowly. If what you say is true, then you are indeed a brave soul. He extended his hand in greeting. Welcome to our enclave. Ray shook his hand firmly but could feel Eldrin's scrutiny lingering on him as if assessing whether he was worthy of trust. We have much to discuss, Eldrin said after a moment, gesturing for them to sit around the fire. As they settled down, Eldrin began explaining what had transpired since Aurora's disappearance, a tale filled with loss and resilience as remnants of House Ven fought to survive against House Morn's oppressive regime. We have been in hiding for decades, Eldrin explained gravely. Many have perished in our struggle for survival. Ray felt a pang of guilt at their plight but also recognized that this was an opportunity for him to help make things right. What can we do? He asked earnestly. Eldrin looked at him thoughtfully before responding. We need resources, ships, weapons, anything that can aid us in our fight against House Morn. I can help with that, Ray offered without hesitation. I have contacts back on Earth who might be able to assist us. Aurora's eyes lit up at his words. If we can gather enough support from Earth Command, we might stand a chance against them. Eldrin nodded appreciatively but added cautiously, but we must act quickly. House Morn will not take long to discover your presence here. Just then, one of Eldrin's companions, a young woman named Mira, rushed into the clearing with urgency etched across her face. They're coming, she gasped between breaths. Scouts from House Morn have been spotted nearby. Panic surged through Ray as he exchanged glances with Aurora and Eldrin. Time was running out. Gather everyone. Eldrin commanded decisively. We must prepare for an attack. Ray felt adrenaline pumping through his veins as he sprang into action alongside Aurora and Eldrin. They quickly organized their small group into defensive positions around the clearing while ensuring that everyone remained calm despite the impending threat. Ray! Aurora called out amid the chaos as she handed him a small communication device. Contact your people. We need reinforcements. He nodded determinedly before stepping away from the group to send out a distress signal toward Earth Command while keeping an eye on their surroundings for any signs of danger. As he transmitted their coordinates along with details about House Morn's imminent approach, anxiety gnawed at him. Would anyone respond in time? Moments later, Mira returned breathlessly once more with news that sent chills down their spines. They're here. The tension in the air thickened as shadows moved through the trees surrounding them. House Morn scouts had arrived sooner than expected. Ray felt his heart race as he prepared himself for what lay ahead. This was no longer just about survival. It was about fighting back against an enemy that had taken so much from so many. The revelation. The jungle around them erupted into chaos as the distraction unit activated, sending a flurry of heat signatures into the air. Ray felt the adrenaline coursing through his veins, his instincts kicking in as he grabbed Aurora's hand. Now, he urged, pulling her along as they dashed deeper into the underbrush. The sounds of House Morn's ships grew louder, their engines roaring as they swept through the trees searching for their quarry. Ray could see beams of light slicing through the foliage, illuminating patches of the ground as they hunted for any signs of movement. Keep low, he hissed, leading Aurora behind a thick trunk just as one of the ships flew overhead. They pressed against the rough bark, hearts racing in unison. Do you think they saw us? Aurora whispered, her golden eyes wide with urgency. Not yet, Ray replied, glancing back toward the clearing where they had been moments before. But we need to keep moving. They continued to weave through the dense vegetation, Ray's mind racing with thoughts of their next steps. He had to get them to his ship before House Morn's hunters caught up with them. As they navigated the labyrinth of trees and vines, Aurora suddenly stopped, pulling him back. Wait, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I sense something. Ray frowned, his instincts telling him to keep going. What do you mean? I can feel their presence, she explained, her expression focused. They're close. Before he could respond, a loud crash echoed through the jungle followed by shouts from House Morn scouts. The sound sent a jolt of panic through Ray. We need to move now, he urged again. As they sprinted away from the noise, Ray's mind raced with questions about Aurora's abilities. He had seen her use energy manipulation before. What else could she do? And what did it mean for their chances of survival? After several minutes of running, they finally reached a small clearing where Ray had hidden his ship among the trees. He quickly scanned for any signs of danger before gesturing for Aurora to follow him inside. Here it is, he said as they approached the modified Stellar-class scout ship. The vessel was sleek and well camouflaged against its surroundings, its hull blending seamlessly with the natural environment. It's beautiful, Aurora remarked, her eyes shining with wonder as she took in the ship's design. Thanks, Ray replied with a grin as he opened the hatch and gestured for her to enter first. Let's hope it can get us out of here. Once inside, Ray activated the ship's systems while Aurora took a seat at one of the consoles. He felt a sense of urgency wash over him as he powered up the engines and prepared for takeoff. "Can you pilot this?" he asked as he worked on inputting their coordinates. "I can manage," she replied confidently, her fingers dancing over the controls. "But I'll need your guidance." Ray nodded and quickly ran through the pre-launch checks while keeping an eye on the scanners for any signs of pursuit. "We'll need to launch stealthily," he instructed. "If we can get out of this atmosphere undetected." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship, cutting him off mid-sentence. "They've found us!" Ray shouted as he rushed back to his seat. "Engaging stealth mode." Aurora called out as she flipped switches and adjusted dials with practiced ease. Ray felt a surge of pride at how quickly she adapted to their situation despite having been asleep for a century. "Let's hope it works," he muttered under his breath as he gripped the controls tightly. With a roar, the engines ignited beneath them, propelling them upward into the sky. The ship shook violently as they broke free from Proxima B7's atmosphere, but Ray kept his focus sharp on their escape route. "Hold on," he shouted as they soared into space. Just as laser fire erupted behind them, the hunters were not far behind. Aurora expertly maneuvered the ship through debris and asteroids floating in space while Ray monitored their pursuers on his scanner. "They're gaining on us," he warned. "I know," she replied fiercely, determination etched on her face. "We need to create some distance." Ray glanced at her and felt an unexpected swell of admiration. She was not just a princess but a warrior in her own right. "Can you tap into that energy manipulation again?" he asked urgently. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "But I'll need time to focus." "Then do it. I'll buy you some time." Ray took control of the ship and executed a sharp turn that sent them spiraling away from their pursuers. As they veered off course, Ray activated defensive measures. Shields flared to life around them just in time to absorb incoming fire from House Mornt's ships. "Now," he shouted as Aurora closed her eyes in concentration. A brilliant flash erupted from their ship, a wave of energy surged outward like a shockwave that rippled through space. The nearest enemy vessel was caught off guard, its systems overloaded and exploded in a shower of debris. "Nice work!" Ray exclaimed as he quickly regained control and continued to evade incoming fire from other ships still pursuing them. But just then, another alarm blared on his console. More ships were entering their vicinity from hyperspace. "Aurora! We have company," he warned frantically as more enemy vessels emerged around them like predators closing in on their prey. "I can't hold this much longer," she gasped, sweat beading on her forehead as she struggled to maintain control over her powers while navigating through chaos. Ray gritted his teeth. They needed an escape route fast. He scanned their surroundings desperately until something caught his eye, a nearby asteroid field that could provide cover if they played it right. "There! Head for that asteroid belt," he shouted over the din of alarms and explosions. Aurora nodded resolutely and steered toward it just as another blast rocked their ship. Their shields were weakening under constant assault. As they entered the asteroid field, Ray felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. This was their chance, but it was also dangerous territory where even skilled pilots could easily lose control. "Stay sharp," he called out as they weaved between massive rocks floating in space that threatened to collide with them at any moment. "I'm trying," Aurora replied through gritted teeth. Her focus was unwavering despite the pressure mounting around them. Just then, one of House Mornt's ships followed too closely behind and collided with an asteroid. An explosion lit up space behind them like fireworks against a dark canvas. "We're losing them." Ray shouted triumphantly but quickly tempered his excitement. There were still more ships out there hunting for them relentlessly. As they navigated deeper into the field filled with rocks and debris swirling around them like ghosts from another time, Ray felt something shift within him, a sense that perhaps this journey was more than just survival. It was about reclaiming lost legacies and forging new alliances against tyranny. With every twist and turn in this deadly game of cat and mouse among asteroids and enemy ships, Ray realized that not only were they fighting for Aurora's life but also for an entire civilization lost to history. A new beginning. The air was thick with tension as Ray and Aurora crouched behind the fallen tree, their hearts racing in sync with the distant thrum of House Morn's ships. The distraction unit had worked. Dozens of heat signatures flickered to life on their scanners, drawing the attention of their pursuers. But as the sounds of engines faded into the distance, a new urgency settled in. "We need to move," Ray urged, breaking the spell that had momentarily held them captive in each other's gaze. He could feel the warmth of Aurora's hand still lingering on his face, a reminder of the connection they had forged in such a short time. Aurora nodded, her expression shifting from vulnerability to determination. "Lead the way," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. As they made their way through the dense underbrush, Ray couldn't shake off the feeling that they were not just running from danger but also stepping into something much larger than themselves. The weight of Aurora's legacy hung heavily in the air, and he felt an unexpected sense of responsibility for her safety. "Your ship is close?" she asked as they navigated through twisting vines and alien flora. "Just a few hundred meters ahead," Ray replied, glancing back at her. "We'll be safe once we're inside." The path grew narrower as they approached a clearing where his ship lay hidden beneath a canopy of leaves. The modified Stellar-class scout ship was sleek and well camouflaged, its hull reflecting the colors of its surroundings. Relief washed over him as they reached it. "Here we are," he said, gesturing toward the ship. "Stay low while I unlock it." Ray quickly activated the ship's systems and opened the hatch. As they slipped inside, he felt a surge of hope mixed with anxiety. They were not out of danger yet. "Get strapped in," he instructed as he took his place at the controls. Aurora obeyed without hesitation, securing herself in one of the passenger seats while keeping her gaze fixed on him. "Can you fly this?" she asked, her voice filled with both concern and curiosity. "I can manage," he replied confidently, though internally he felt the weight of their situation pressing down on him. "Just keep an eye on our scanners for any incoming ships." With a flick of switches and a few taps on his wrist computer, Ray initiated launch sequences. The engines roared to life beneath them, vibrating with power as they prepared for takeoff. "Ray!" Aurora called out suddenly, her voice sharp with urgency. "What?" he asked, glancing at her as he monitored their surroundings. "The energy spike from my preservation chamber, it may have activated old monitoring systems across Proxima B," she explained quickly. "We need to leave now before they trace us back here." His heart raced at her words, time was not on their side. "Understood." "Hang on tight," he shouted as he engaged the thrusters and propelled them upward into the sky. As they broke free from Proxima B's atmosphere, Ray felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. They had escaped one danger only to be thrust into another, an uncertain future filled with challenges ahead. Entering hyperspace, he announced as they jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving behind the purple-hued world that had nearly claimed them both. Aurora took a deep breath beside him, visibly relaxing as they entered the calmness of hyperspace. "We did it," she said softly, a hint of disbelief in her voice. "For now," Ray replied cautiously, keeping his eyes focused on their navigational charts. "But we need to figure out our next move." "What do you suggest?" Aurora asked, leaning closer to him as she studied his expression. Ray considered their options carefully. "First, we need to contact Earth Command, let them know what happened and seek assistance." Aurora's expression darkened at his words. "You don't understand, House Morn will have agents everywhere watching for any signs of my awakening. If you report this, they'll know you're alive," Ray finished for her, feeling the weight of her fear settle over him like a heavy cloak. "But we can't just hide forever." "I'm not asking you to hide," she replied firmly. "I'm asking you to be strategic. We need allies, those who will stand with us against House Morn." Ray nodded slowly, she was right. They needed more than just Earth Command support, they needed a coalition strong enough to challenge House Morn's influence across the sector. "All right then," he said decisively. "Let's find allies, starting with your people." Aurora smiled faintly at his determination. "There are remnants of House Ven scattered throughout this sector. If we can locate them and rally support, then we might stand a chance," Ray finished for her again, feeling a sense of purpose ignite within him. As they plotted their course toward potential allies' locations across various planets in the sector, Ray couldn't help but glance at Aurora frequently, the way her lilac gown shimmered under the ship's lights or how her golden eyes sparkled with resolve reminded him that they were in this together. Hours passed as they navigated through hyperspace until finally reaching their destination, a small moon orbiting an uninhabited planet rumored to harbor remnants of House Ven. "We should be cautious here," Ray warned as they approached their landing site. "If House Morn has scouts nearby." "I know," Aurora interrupted softly but firmly. "I can sense them too." Ray raised an eyebrow at her words. There was so much about her abilities that intrigued him. "What do you mean?" "I can feel their emotions, fear, anger, desperation." She paused thoughtfully before continuing, "It's almost overwhelming." "That sounds intense," he said sympathetically as he landed the ship smoothly on the moon's surface. "It is," she admitted quietly before taking a deep breath to regain her composure. "But it also means I can help us navigate through any potential threats." Ray stepped out first, scanning their surroundings for any signs of danger before gesturing for Aurora to follow him outside. The landscape was barren yet beautiful, a stark contrast to Proxima B's vibrant hues, with rocky terrain stretching out under an endless expanse of stars above them. "This way," Aurora said suddenly as she began moving toward a cluster of rocks that jutted out from the ground like ancient sentinels guarding secrets long forgotten. As they approached closer together, Ray felt that electric connection between them intensify again. It was both thrilling and terrifying all at once. "What happens if we find your people?" he asked cautiously while keeping pace beside her. Aurora turned to look at him with determination etched across her features. "Then we will unite against House Morn and reclaim what is rightfully ours." Ray nodded resolutely. This was no longer just about survival, it was about fighting for justice and restoring hope not only for Aurora but also for all those who had suffered under oppression. As they ventured deeper into unknown territory together, each step bringing them closer to destiny, their fates intertwined like threads woven into an intricate tapestry waiting to be unraveled.